Hi folks, John O'Leary from Horse Problems Australia, and welcome back to my horse training online friends. We have here a young lady who's been here this week breaking in her own horse with my assistance, and today is first ride day. She hasn't been ridden before. She's a German warm blood, lovely girl, and Claire's just in the process of lunging her around to get used to the girth. And of course you must always girth up probably 6 times with a breaker, and especially any horse that is girthy at all, because otherwise they'll buck as you're walking around on them, because they suddenly feel the girth and you'll get yourself bucked off. It's also not fair on horses to rip them up and girth them up tight and then send them off around the round pen. That's just not using empathy at all. You'll also notice that the back cinch is not done up, and of course most horses aren't used to back cinches, but well broken in horses are. But again, using empathy for the young horse, we are getting the girth up a bit tighter first. That's also for risk management, so as if the horse bucks, it doesn't get the saddle around underneath its stomach and it turns into an absolute nightmare, disaster, which I've seen many times. But it's also too much to ask, if we care about our young horses, to lunge them straight up with a back cinch up their stomach, as well as a girth. That's just not justice in training, and in my opinion is not a good horse trainer. Too gung-ho, too cowboy. And so Claire will just lunge her around a little bit, and then we'll put the back cinch up, which she's had on probably 3 or 4 times and been bucking a fair bit with it, but we've got her to the stage where we think she's coming to terms with it, and providing we do the right thing, she shouldn't buck. However, if we do the wrong thing, we'll make her buck. And of course we don't want these horses to learn to buck, and we don't want them to think that we want them to buck or that they should buck. And I have met horses that have been promoted to buck on the lunge that actually think that they have to buck when they lunge in the future, and then take it very serious and then become buck jumpers under saddle. So it's a fine line that we tread. Some bucking, if it was their decision to be silly and buck, providing we did not cause it and that we weren't stupid and unjust, some bucking is good because the horse, and really to be ignored, because a lot of horses will buck the first time, either with a saddle or definitely with a back cinch. But they shouldn't buck day after day after day, and we don't want to make mistakes and to promote them to buck. Now you'll notice that Claire is just walking her. To be fair, you can put that back cinch on now, Claire. We'll just put this back cinch on. And a back cinch goes up flush with the stomach of the horse, but not girthed up like a girth. However, it must not be hanging down, it must be basically touching the stomach of the horse. Remembering that when you sit in the saddle, the back cinch will drop at least 2 inches. So you don't want them loose when you put them on to start with, otherwise they'll hang down too far, and then if a horse does buck, there's a fair chance that it'll get a back leg stuck in the back cinch, and you should see that scene with a rider on board.
Is that all right?
Yeah, one more hole up. Now, of course, horses blow their stomach out, especially 3 or 4 days ago, she'd blow her stomach out more, and then they'll relax and bring their stomach back in, so suddenly things are looser than what they were. So again, the reason to have it up flush. Now when you put a back cinch on, day after day after day, go through all of these procedures and be fair to the horse. The first thing she's doing is to walk her and to not promote her to trot off and suddenly cause the back cinch, her stomach to expand, the back cinch to grab her under the stomach and her think that the thing has grabbed hold of her and then into a bucking frenzy. Horses will get used to everything of a reasonable nature, including back cinches. But we must, I always promote training with empathy and understanding for the horse. Now in this situation here, the horse has come in to say, well, how did I do that? Wasn't a bad job, was it, mother? And therefore the horse should be rewarded. Always reward. Reward comes from stroking horses, not slapping. Claire's
Be careful, your thing's rubbing.
Claire's got a little habit from working in England and other places, Europe, and tends to slap a bit. But horses don't slap each other.
Good girl. Okay, son. That's on.
So after walking a few laps, to be fair on the horse, then trot off, but don't generate the horse to suddenly rush off because you don't want her stomach to blow out and hit the back cinch and then cause bucking. The best management for young horses being started is that they don't buck. However, if they decide to buck out of their own reasons, that's fine, but we must never make them buck. So this little plod around here is enough in terms of the back cinch. That speed is enough, but probably if we cantered her, which I'll get Claire to do now, you may see a different side to her. But if she goes to buck, I just want you to jag on her head and try and interrupt her and tell her not to. Claire, that's first trot.
Is that enough of the top?
Yep. And canter. Canter.
Super, good girl.
It's a girl, not a boy. Now, get that rope in the other hand. Let the end of the rope in your right hand and give her a slap. That's the way. Okay, very good. Now, okay, that'll do. Now, if a young horse is not a particularly girthy type, which this one isn't too bad, and you know that cantering is not going to send it off something chronic, then they all should canter when you girth them up on riding day, and they should canter both ways to get the moths out of them and to make sure that they feel everything under extenuating circumstances, that they don't suddenly feel something different and something move when you're on them and suddenly start bucking because you just didn't get the cobwebs out of them enough. However, on day 3 of this back cinch, if she went to buck now, we would stop her bucking and we wouldn't allow it, and we'd rip her around and then recommence, because we don't want her learning and even thinking about it anymore in the future, and plus we want her to know that we can stop her bucking from this day on, and we will never, if possible, allow the young horse to buck ever again. Now there is a theory especially in England and Europe that says if a young horse goes to buck, ride them forward. I violently disagree with that proposition because most people in the world cannot ride buck jumpers, and even horse trainers and breakers get bucked off. And so that is just an absolutely ridiculous statement to make, and you're risking throwing the entire career of the horse away forever and all of your economic investment, because the horse will get a victory and get rid of the rider. And from that point of view, just sit back and have a look at this video that I'm now going to play you on that subject. You
Not
are a
even
good
thinking
girl.
about bucking
Okay,
then.
thanks Claire.
That's okay. Shall I hop out?
Let's hope she doesn't think about bucking later.
No. I'll hop out for you.
Now, never ever trust anyone else's girthing up if you're going to get on a suspect's horse, and always check them, because otherwise you could get dropped one day. And if you do girth a young horse up, which I said before needs to be done probably at least 6 times and sometimes more, just give them another lap of the, even though she's ready, give them another lap, because you did change the girth scenario. And remember, anything suddenly different is what can send off, good girl, a breaker. Now, good girl, she's a lovely girl. Now, this podcast is about the first ride and the first mount in a more comprehensive way than I've done before, but I thought I might as well do it now. And so I want to run through step by step all of the things that you should do when you're getting on a breaker for the first ride. And now remember that we hopefully have put air brakes on the horse, and we're going to utilise those from this day on. And air brakes meaning a lateral mouth. Remember that most systems of mouthing a horse cannot stop a horse from buck jumping if you use the front brakes. Control of buck jumpers comes from the lateral mouth, and you must brainwash yourself to go for the lateral mouth first, never the front brakes, which is not an easy thing for the English girls to get their head around, because first instinct is always two reins. But again, watch that video that I've just played you about that subject. Back again. Sorry about that, we're having a bit of wind interference here, apologies. The first thing that you must do is it's all about rein control when you get on a young one, and this is the rein control that we adopt, which is the hand there, the flexion of the horse around, a handful of mane. I'll just move the horse a bit further. Come around here, darling. Handful of mane in the hand then, and only then the outside rein. And the outside rein is looser than this rein, because I only want one rein. I'm not remotely interested in the right hand rein during the riding of this horse. The next, because I'm left-handed. The other thing about these horses is that it's highly advisable that you go left. Don't go right, and don't flex the horse to the right, because the right hand side is the side that trouble comes from. They see things differently out of the right eye, and so I always go left for the first couple of rides before I go right. And therefore I'm only interested in the left rein. In fact, I don't even need my right rein on my bridle, even on a breaker. On the subject of the right eye, now sit back and have a look at Uncle Pat riding this horse. Okay, so now the next thing is that we do is that, because the fear of you suddenly in the saddle often will cause a horse to buck, and so you want to eliminate that, and therefore I recommend that you do this. And this horse hasn't been ridden, incidentally. This is a genuine situation. Stand up in the saddle, hold the horse's head there at all costs, with white knuckles in the left hand if you need to, and caress the horse on the right hand side, and get off the horse, reward her, and rest and relax. That tells them that it's a non-event about me standing up there, and that I'm not going to suddenly cut her throat. I also recommend that you then do it again once more, and then get off again, and you might even walk away a little bit or position the horse somewhere else, but at least get off. And then the third time, actually swing up and go and get on the saddle, which I will do next. This is a bit of a cuddle pot. This horse, you may know. And on the subject of trust, hopefully horses don't. The main thing that gets horses not to buck us or attempt to buck us off is the thing called trust. Trust and genuine affection. And you can judge me as a horseman by watching this horse. And she's telling you that her, even though we only started this horse on Tuesday morning, and today's Friday, and she's had a fair bit of work, it has not affected her soul or her happiness, and she thinks that I'm her big mate. Now that equals trust, and that hopefully equals not attempting to buck you off. I'm just going to cut the camera one more time because I've just noticed that I haven't got a monkey strap on this saddle, and I need one in case she does buck. Yeah. Okay, so back again, and so now she's uphill here at the back end, so I'm going to put her downhill a bit. You do that if you're a pygmy. I'll do it because I'm a geriatric. And when you land on the back of the horse, come down gently. Don't slap it on the other side with your leg. And definitely do not kick it in the back side. Which is why unathletic people have trouble, are in danger on horses like this. Now the other thing is that don't let their face go until you've got your right hand foot in the other stirrup, and you've got your hand on the right hand monkey strap, and then caress and stroke and make love to your horse all the time in the world. Use, the better the horse is going to adapt. The same as when we break her in, we always give her the time. Don't let her look around to the right hand side. So even though I've got basically a shortish rein, plenty of rein here, I've still got enough whereby I can take it if I want to, and I won't let her look around to the right. Because everything we do here, we're going to go left. Good girl. She's a good girl. For the amateur, it doesn't pay to let go your monkey strap at the start until you know that you've got the horse worked out and you can trust it. You can meet plenty of horses that are nice and trusting like this one that can suddenly buck 5 metres down the track. So don't ever trust them, because you never know what can happen. Or what some idiot will do that suddenly meets your neighbour walking up the bank here and putting his head over the top here and making this horse spin around and then start violently bucking. Good girl, she's a lovely girl. The other thing is that, now the next subject I want to talk about is that how do we make a breaker walk off? Well, you can't put leg on because they're likely to buck. You definitely can't kick them because they'll definitely buck. And therefore when you're breaking in, you'll notice that I use a lot of voice commands and teach my horses the English language, and hopefully when I get on board a breaker that I don't have to upset it or frighten it by suddenly trying to give it a kick or hit it around the back end, which also may make it buck. Not necessarily if you program the horse during your groundwork to be hit over the back end and that the engine is in the back with your Pirelli ropes, your lead ropes, etc. But you may have to turn around and just touch your horse on the back side to get it to understand what it is to walk forward. The other thing is that this patience on a breaker will often bring you the situation where they will walk off on their own anyhow, and she actually went to walk off before and I stopped her so that I could finish talking. But we'll do that now, and hopefully she will. I have her programmed to understand WALK or the CK, which I've been using during the breaking in. This particular horse is so, her IQ is so high that if I say those words and spell them, she's just as likely to do it. Okay. Okay, darling. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl, good girl, good girl. Now, you saw no walk there, but you saw the thought go through her head, and one of her legs went to move. And in the world of reward and relief, and making every try a winner, you should accept it as I just did, because that's what makes life easy, and that's what is good about good horse trainers. Okay, walk on, love. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl, good girl, good girl. And reward. And tell her she did something good. Remember, she does not know what it is we want, and she doesn't know that she's going to have to carry us around from this day on rather than us being on the ground chasing around with ropes. So we've got to show her the way, and smart trainers always show them the way. Okay, walk on. I don't like turning sharp circles either on breakers, but we're going to have to go left here. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl, good girl, good girl. She's a good girl. She's a lovely girl. She's a good girl. No leg on. Once we got to know the horse, and tomorrow you can start jiggling your legs around when you say walk on or cluck, so that it becomes an association of ideas and gradually build that leg means walk on. However, that comes from a combination of leg and the English language. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Good girl. Walk on. Good girl. And your first, whoa, 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 your first one rein stop on this brainwashed horse, whoa, with the lateral mouth comes after 2 or 3 strides of the walk. So that you're brainwashing her from day one that the lateral mouth is all powerful. You do not have to walk around this round yard because she did what she was asked, and we will build. Walk on, love. Walk on. 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 Good girl. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Now she doesn't know what that means, but because we've got stuck in stone there, I've decided that I have to go to the next level for a moment and just actually touch her on the backside. Because we've done the groundwork and everything during the last 3 days that I can touch her on the backside. She's used to most things, including stock whip training, this horse, and I could crack a stock whip off her right now. But I now want to teach her to generate, and the best breaker is the one that is generated from the rear end. And when she starts to understand what leg is, my split reins will be my accelerator, so that we get a horse that is very good at listening to leg and is light on leg. But patience, again, patience talking to you, it's all a non-event. Walk on, love. Walk on. Not going to go to that. Walk on, walk on. Walk on, walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And I overdo the word woo. You can use whatever word you like. It can be Russian, German, French, doesn't matter. But I overdo the word woo right from the start so that she understands. Now, on the subject of the backup, a highly contentious term, especially in the English world, where you'll hear dressage trainers all over the world telling you that you can never back up a young horse because it's detrimental to their future. I again violently disagree with that proposition for many reasons, but I can't tell you them all here now. But the next thing I'm going to do is to put the foundation stones on this horse that it can never run through my hands, and we do that by adding the Western systems of backup to the breaker. After only 3 or 4 walks, we're already going to back up, and I'm going to back up after every stop. Good girl, in the future. Now, if you know about my DVD, Listen to Horses, and if you wind that back, you'll see that this horse just read my mind or understood the English language of backup. So I'm not going to back her up. She's even thinking it now because she already did. Walk on, love, walk on. And the flies are getting a bit much here, so we've got to go. Walk on, walk on, walk on, walk on, walk on. Don't go to that. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. Good girl. Good girl. She's a lovely girl. Now I can do a front, whoa, test the front brakes. But predominantly we'll use the one rein stop, especially when we start trotting, etc. Walk on. She decided to go. I made it my command by saying walk on, walk on. Good girl. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Whoa, whoa. Good girl, good girl. Now remember the back cinch in terms of how girthy your horse is. If you had a particularly girthy horse over the top, you may want to think about the back cinch, because if you had to go a violent one rein stop, they will blow their stomach out and then may buck because of the back cinch under those circumstances. So make everything smooth and assess your horse, know what you're dealing with. Okay, now wall back, first wall back in her life. Good girl, good girl, good girl. Reward and relief at the millisecond. The effectiveness of all of the systems equal the speed of the release, as I say. Wait, break everything up, never run training regimes together. We've got all day, and all we have to do today on this horse is to walk around a couple of times and get off. I'm not even going to trot her, because the fact that we got off her is going to be the ultimate reward and relief, and teach her from day one that riding was never an issue and that it's something to be enjoyed, and she doesn't have to worry about it, rather than me here trying to show off to make her go and stop and trot and turn, etc., which could end up in a buck jump show. So you, the amateur owner, you just do what I do here now, and tomorrow your horse will know twice as much as it does right now when you first get on it. Good girl. And be happier as well. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. She keeps wanting to go to that wool bale because she's been tied up there. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. Good girl. You notice I'm adding a little bit of waggly leg here. Whoa. Because I know I can. And she backs straight off my hands because of the integrity of the front mouth, even though I've only done a maximum of about 12 minutes on it, haven't we? That just shows you the results you can get in shortest amount of time because of the high intelligence of the horse. Good girl, good girl, good girl. Now this particular horse, they are all different, and you want to use your nous and know what you're dealing with. Now I know that I'm now not going to back this one up much at this stage because of her high IQ. She can suddenly become a backing fool, and backing being her party trick. And so as long as I can back her up, and she does the rest, I'm going to go with that. I'm not going to. I won't back her up the next two or three times because she knows what to do. Walk on, love. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. 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 Good girl. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Whoa. Whoa. Good girl. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. Okay. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. Good girl. Good girl. Walk on. Walk on. Walk on. When they've got a good mouth, you've got to have hands of silk, because any touch on her mouth is going to stop her rather than steer her. Walk on. Walk on. Outside leg now. Wobbling, not the inside. Already training legs. Walk on. Inside leg. Right hand leg. Left rein. Whoa. Whoa. Good girl. Good girl. She's a good girl. Whoa. And I'm going to make her stop. I'm not going to allow her to walk through my hands right from day one. Good girl. And just before I get off, pull back. Good girl. Good girl. Now, and as I said, that's long enough. If you can achieve that success, you're going to be very excited when you go in and watch the video tonight with the popcorn and all of your girlfriends. But that's all you've got to do. Tomorrow the horse is going to be twice as good and half the chance of bucking tomorrow than today. Here we go. And then, she's a lovely girl. Tell the horse what a lovely girl it is, and go and get her a nice little hard feed when you put her away. Thank you. It's a privilege.